And we are live. So let me welcome everyone to this session. A very good evening. I've been checking out the chats the chat that is going on, right? So worst VARC ever. अगर इसको worst VARC बोलोगे, तो previous mock को क्या बोलोगे? So I'm reading it and we'll come to each of the questions. But yeah, so there's a welcome from me, and we have Shivku with us, who will be on the screen in a couple of minutes. And we have Gautam Agarwal. Let me just give you an idea about Gautam. Right, Gautam is from CL Amritsar, right? And he's been there for over 1.5 decades. Gautam,
almost 20 years, sir.
20 years, yeah, so almost 2 decades, yeah. So Gautam has also recorded your solutions for this particular test for DILR, am I right? So so he's a serial 99 percentiler in a way. I think very close to 100 percentile also you reached. है ना गौतम? आप थोड़ा बताएंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा.
Sazeal, I just interrupt because गौतम को बहुत कम लोग जानते हैं जितना मैं जानता हूँ. If I have to pick out the top 2 faculty for Quant DILR in career launcher, और मैं तो इंडिया में बोलूंगा, मैं उसमें गौतम का नाम डालूंगा. He is the most underrated faculty. Not many people know about him. He is also low profile. अपने आप आगे आता नहीं है. But in terms of his understanding of Quant DILR, in terms of his ability to reach the level of the student, that's terrific. In fact, if I remember correctly, शिवको को याद होगा 20 साल पहले फैकल्टी ट्रेनिंग भी हुआ था. I think Gautam was a topper.
गौतम 20 साल हो गए ना.
हाँ सर, 20 साल हो गए. और सबसे बड़ी बात मैं बच्चों को हमेशा ये कहता हूँ, आई एम अ पर्सन हु नेवर हैड मैथ्स इन +1 and +2.
वाओ,
ये मुझे नहीं मालूम था. This
And here
something I
are the
did not.
students. The students are calling out. Hello, Gautam sir. Happy to see you again.
Hello everybody.
All right. So, so Saptarshi बोल रहा है बहुत interestingly, CL hires faculty with 2 criteria. एक तो first name गौतम होना चाहिए, गौतम पुरी, गौतम बावा, and now Gautam Agarwal also. Right? So yes.
G cube और वो जीजो को भी डाल दो तो G2 4 हो जाएगा.
Gautam quotient, G quotient. Yes.
G4. Yeah.
Right. So let's quickly begin with the session. एक question है, where is Gejo sir? So Gejo sir is not here. He's virtually present in this virtual session. Okay, so
he's on a flight, I think.
He's on a flight, but we'll bring him in form of a recorded video for you guys. So yes, let's get on to the analysis with this, and let's have the slides up. So let's go for CDC Pro 7. Okay, sir, before we get into this, very interesting question pointed to me, but all of us should answer this. Why are CL mocks becoming tougher with each passing mock? तो बेटा मेरा आंसर तो ये है कि ऐसा नहीं होता. CL एक मॉक टफ नहीं होता, ठीक है. सेक्शन टफ या इजी या डिफिकल्ट या मॉडरेट हो सकता है, ठीक है. एंड दैट कीप्स वेरिंग बिकॉज कैट का कोई एक लेवल नहीं है. हम पहले भी ये बता चुके हैं कि कैट का कोई एक लेवल नहीं होता, ठीक है. कैट का भी के सेक्शंस का लेवल वेरी होता रहता है. एंड वी मेक श्योर दैट वी गिव यू एन एंटायर एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ ऑल द कैट ऑफ द पास्ट एंड व्हाट कुड बी इन द फ्यूचर. सो दैट इज व्हाट आवर एफर्ट इज. राइट शिवकू, योर आंसर ऑन दिस?
Yeah, the scores don't suggest that. I'm saying the scores are very similar to what CAT 2023 is.
22 and 23 को मैच कर रहा है absolutely कहीं ना कहीं. So let's
in this paper, I think why people would be feeling this is a difficult paper because Quant को देखो. The first few questions are geometry, which many people don't want to do.
Exactly.
Similarly, if you look at DILR, you have that games and tournaments wala. And the other sets also, if you look at the games and tournament छोड़ देते हैं, दूसरे वाले में भी थोड़ा काम करना पड़ता है. First वाला is a scheduling, which is going to take time. Which is something which so this paper I felt partly because of structure, partly because the question type was such that some students would not be happy with.
जीपी तुम्हारा ऑडियो काफी वो erratic है.
something with the I think network, I guess. Yeah. So GP, we could hear half the things you said. We missed a couple of things. But what he is trying to say is that
was a problem.
Okay. First few questions being might have affected the students' performance there, the mindset. That's what you were saying, GP, right? Yeah.
Quant के अंदर वहां पे था. When you look at the games and tournament, most people don't like such data set because you have to work your way through. You have to look at the entire data. Similarly, the first set of DILR was a scheduling wala, जिसमें थोड़ा सा काम करना होगा. So when you look at across paper, this was something which was making students work a lot and was also focusing on some of the areas which students don't like.
In fact, GP, to add to what you are saying, even verbal में the better RCs were the third and the fourth RC, not the first two. So I think वो थोड़ा impact हुआ हो सकता है student के morale पे. But that is exactly what shouldn't happen. You should not get affected by the first two questions or few questions that are there. Actually, RT99 में जाके हम लोग वही बात कर रहे हैं कि पहले 6 क्वेश्चन गलत आ गए तो तुम्हारा 7वां easy question नहीं affect होना चाहिए. That is what we've been reiterating time and again. So yes, let's get on to it. Okay, so just comparing the data, very interesting observation here. So मैंने जो notice किया है कि some part of the scores were similar to CAT 22 performance पे, especially 97, 95, 90 percentile अगर आप उसके आसपास देखोगे, it is more closer to CAT 22, but at the higher and the lower, a higher level, it is more closer to CAT 23. So that is where the differentiating factor has been. So कुछ questions ने बच्चों को differentiate किया है at the higher percentiles. I think that's how I look at it. Right, Gautam, what are your observations on this?
So to be very true, the paper was not very tough in the first look. I probably didn't analyze the VARC section as such, but otherwise, I would say it was very close to what CAT 23 was. DILR ko when I analyzed, probably first and second set, yes, if we could have spent 15-20 minutes on a set, probably 12 to 15 minutes, and easy 3-4 questions were definitely there. The last two sets were probably tough. Last set was more of deceptive because बहुत थोड़ी सी information है, quantitative ability का question लगता है, तो वो probably students must have spent like 5-7 minutes trying to figure out यार इसमें तो कुछ दिया ही नहीं हुआ, but then probably that could be waste of time. उसके बाद if somebody would have probably come down to set 1 or set 2, set 1 काफी I would say traditional lines पे था, and खासकर GP सर वाले वो जुगाड़ अगर हम एक दो पकड़ लेते और questions का डाटा यूज कर लेते तो शायद सेट बहुत इजी हो जाता. That probably technique of solving that set 1 was very easier. And set 2 में again वो traditional lines पे था, points थे, ranks थे. So मेरा analysis उसमें भी यही था कि शायद बच्चा अगर ये समझ लेता कि हर चीज को सिर्फ 4 से multiply किया हुआ है, the set was easier. तो वो थोड़ा सा बस thin line वहाँ पे problem ये बच्चों को आया होगा कि we never had something which was very straight, very obvious. So something like somebody who is trying to solve as many questions as possible could have stuck with something.
Right. Okay. Cool. So the numbers hence are showing like Shivku said a while ago. The numbers show that the paper was not unnecessarily too difficult. Right. It was quite similar to what it was in between 22 and 23. So ये मेरे हिसाब से तो यही दिख रहा है scores से. Right. So all of you who felt कि बहुत difficult paper था, नहीं बहुत difficult तो नहीं था. ठीक है. Yes, थोड़ा सा like GP and Gautam said. Right, so there was some typicality in terms of the kind of questions that were there in the initial phase, initial period, initial part of the test. Right, so with that, let's move on to the next one and let's do a section-wise understanding of this. Right, so again, as expected, so QA ka cutoff was 36. So clearly, in terms of 99%, 99.5 percentile. So it was not a very difficult one. 99 percentile was at 33. So ये थोड़ा doable सा test लग रहा है quant के perspective से. DILR में Gautam, what is your take on the scores?
Sir, that 30 marks पे 99 percentile is definitely was little difficult to achieve because that means पहले दो set पूरे ठीक हुए होंगे. But definitely सर हम नीचे वाले percentiles पे अगर देख रहे हैं तो 18 marks पे 90 percentile है. That was very achievable. So I would again believe first set अगर मैं थोड़ा solve कर पाता तो that 5 questions was straight. उसमें कुछ आगे कुछ twist नहीं था, कुछ turns नहीं थे. Even the second set was very attemptable. So that could be a reason that probably that 1, 2 or 5% of the people was able to get that first two sets in the first go. जिसकी वजह से scores probably was again I think what I remember CAT 23 में DILR का cut off 99 का was again at around 28-29 marks only. And last year का scale score के हिसाब से देखें तो the paper was almost at the same difficulty level, where two sets were very attemptable. The one could be little more easier. The second was attemptable. One of the sets was tough, which I believe वो जो games and tournaments का set था, that was the toughest call. And then वो जो एक last set था, again, if the student knows the logic behind it, permutation combination का थोड़ा सा logic और वो एक sequencing का order, mathematics का, could have been easy attempt. Otherwise, was a tough call.
Right. So, okay. So, VARC again seems like it was 13 questions per 99 percentile, 13 net corrects. So, that seems like a slightly tough paper. In fact, जब देखते हैं तो समझ में आता है कि पहले दो RCs फोड़ना difficult था. In fact, even VA was a little difficult. Students have found a little difficult to crack. Is also visible. So, we'll get into that in this. So, we've come to VARC section, and let's call Gejo. Gejo's video has been sent because he is on a flight right now. So, Neha, could you please play Gejo's video, and we'll then get into the analysis of it. But before you do that, I'll quickly take you through the data. I'm sure Gejo will also do that in his video. But just to understand where we are, right? So, CDC Pro 7, a 99 percentile was at 39 ka score. Last year it was 37. The year before it was 39. So it was very close to what 22 was in terms of the difficulty and the scoring. Right. So a good 95 percentile is also at 30 percentile, which is similar to what it was last year or the year before. So more or less the level difficulty has been the same. But because again, like GP said, कुछ पहले के RCs difficult थे. पहला sentence completion का question was also tough. So basically everything was tough to start with. यहाँ पे वो बंदा जो काम रख पाएगा अपने आप को and थोड़ा resilient है in his mind will be able to go through very calmly to a question that he can do. So that is what was supposed to happen, right? We'll come to this in Gejo's video. So let's Neha, please play Gejo's video.
I'm not able to attend the analysis session live, but I thought I'll record this video and give you the sense of the analysis of the CDC Pro 7 of the VARC section. So starting with the score. Now this score that I have taken is based on the slots of both Saturday and Sunday. The Monday session, I don't know whether it has changed the score a bit. But when you look at this kind of score, it's kind of very similar to what we've seen in 2023, though there are sort of some problems here towards the end. I think that somebody who has kind of attempted all the questions, but at least all the questions, probably would have not got a reward that they expected to happen. But then we had sort of some issues and problems here. Okay. So in general, when you look at the kind of sources where it's kind of picked, so we got one taken from a book, one actually taken from human geography, but there are two passages that looks very similar in terms of topic, which you might be going, sir, why do we have the same topic? It's not, it's different. Okay. One from Iona says, one from a journal. Okay. All these are about 500 words, right? And then the grade some of the passages are dense and a lot of these questions were logical, and you had passages taken from all sort of sources for your verbal ability. So this is sort of the story of the question-based analysis. Okay, a few things I want to say. The number one is when I look at this reading comprehension. Let's focus on reading comprehension. The easiest passage to read was his thought experiments. This was the easiest to read. This was the thought experiment passage. And the attempt of this particular passage suggests that's a case as well, right? So many of you felt and actually picked up this passage. But unfortunately, this passage had some difficult options. Some of these options were sort of difficult. That is sort of the one question, the highest, sort of the easiest, this sort of a medium one and the difficult one. So what is likely would have happened in cases is this particular passage did not turn out to be a passage which gave us any comfort. At least while marking it, we were probably very confident in doing it. But once a test is done, this is a problematic one. So it could be it's actually possible that we might end up getting a -4, and we might probably get a 1 correct and 3 wrong, maybe about a 0. And these kind of scores is very possible. So let's say 2 correct. This is like 1 correct, 3 wrong will be about which is the 0 marks, right? It's 3 minus 3, 0. And maybe you've got 2 correct and 2 wrong. That's what that was 6. 6, that is 4 marks. These 3 scenarios could be possible, and you end up having any of these, that would have changed the story. And anyone actually getting more than about 8 marks in this particular passage would have done a fantastic job. Now, when I look at other passages here, so look at the passage number 1. The passage was China's foreign relation, and for some reason, this attempt is drastically reduced when that was kind of easy, right? And there was one question, and this was genuinely, I'm sure that a lot of you will have still issues with respect to how the hell this answer to this question is, but you can obviously refer to the video solution. I've tried to explain it, okay, as convincingly as possible. So there is this challenge here with this particular passage. Now here, it's like anything above 8 plus marks would have been should have happened, right? 8 marks at least, but should have happened. These two passages, one on literary nonsense and one on scientific method, and especially the passage on scientific method, is a passage when you actually start reading it, it's so dry. I mean, it's so dry. It's after reading the first paragraph itself, we decided sort of not to attempt. And there will be some of you would have actually gone with this, but actually look at this passage. If you actually look at this passage, the idea of sort of was simple. You start talking about there is something known as a theory. A theory starts with axiom and statement, and this theory to be scientific, what it has to have some practical, the necessary condition to have practical relevance, and for that we need to have testable hypothesis. This hypothesis must be falsifiable, otherwise it's not scientific method. It's sort of a simple idea that is actually mentioned in this particular passage. And if you actually look at all these questions together, what you can actually see that if I put out, this is a 50% accuracy level. These questions, these medium questions are more and more like easy to medium ones. So it's quite possible to get 12 marks. Anything about 8 marks, 12 marks is what we need in this particular passage. Same, I would say, with the passage literary nonsense, though there is sort of one question which is medium level question. This again something that is above 50 marks. So this is again a question which is about 8 marks to 12 marks. So what I'm looking at is passage 1, passage 2, passage 3, passage 4, and this is sort of a good score and an awesome one. In passage number 1 is the good score, an awesome score would be about 8 marks here, right? So that would be awesome. Obviously, will be 12 everywhere. So at least 8 marks is something that we needed from the passage number 1. Passage number 2, I think that I'll just me put about 4 marks coming out of it. 8 will be excellent. At least 4 should come out of it. Passage number 3, we are looking at 8 to 12, and passage number 4, we are looking at 8 to 12. Right now, the issue is that since most of us attempted passage number 2, and then we obviously rejected one of these particular passages, you end up having these scores, and the 4 is, if you attempt all the passages, this is how much. 24 plus 4 is 28. 28 to about 28 plus another this about 8 more marks. So 28 to 36 is something that I think if you attempt all the passages, right? All the 4 passages, 28 to 36, what is likely going to come out from here? Okay. Then if I look at the VA story, what is absolutely crazy about this VA story is, look at this. The attempt reduced. In the paragraph jumble question, accuracy increased. This attempt reduced, accuracy is increased. I don't know what is happening. And again, you got this one. So even if, let's say, this is like this odd sentence and this one question and this one question, there in VA, there is 4 questions that is given to the taking. That is 12 marks. So -2, about 10 plus marks is what is absolutely needed here. So if somebody is looking at attempting all the 24 questions, right, 28 plus 10 would be about 38 marks to about 46 marks will be very fantastic. So 38 marks to 46 marks is where I can actually see here. So 99 percentile to 99.5 percentile if you end up attempting all the questions. Now, if there is someone who's sort of not attempting, let's say one passage or so, depending upon which passage you missed, then you're looking at about 30 marks to about about 38 marks. So this is likely going to be the case when we end up being somewhere here, right? So that will be the case. Anything less than that means that we kind of fell for some of these traps, right? So that I'm not suggesting that even this odds and ends question is sort of is crackable. So if it's slightly painful one, this paragraph jumble question, I understand it's tough. This was also sort of crackable. I don't know why people missed this one here. Okay, so this was up to me about 15 marks is also possible here. So there is a lot of things to learn. One of the thing is that the problem with just looking at the passage and deciding whether it's turned out to be easy or medium. This is difficult. So most of the time, what you find is that when the passage is kind of tough to read, most of the questions are crackable. The passage is easy to read. The questions are going to be slightly more painful. This is what we have seen in general. I'm not saying that this would be the norm, right? So this is sort of the story that I can see here. Okay, I want to go through a few of these. I just recorded the video. I'm looking at a few of these questions that this problem. For example, this particular question, this question number 2 in passage number 1, which is like just 8% accuracy of this Queen Government question, it's just a tough one to pick. Right? This one talks about what is hierarchical inclusion. And one question says hierarchy of alliances. Other says hierarchy of inclusivity. Inclusivity is different from inclusion. Inclusion is you're part of a group. Inclusivity is something else. So anyways, case. So there are these questions that are a problem. I want to pick up. This is a question, for example, this particular question here, which is the question. I think this is the question now, where the last question where people did not attempt. This is a question which is the interpretation question of a particular sentence. Interpretation question of a particular sentence. This is the one. So I don't know why you would not attempt this. This is a question that can be solved. All right, and then for example, look at this passage, which is this is passage number 2, where people struggle in so some of these questions I've explained. I'm just going to pick one question. All right, this one question talks about what is play. What is the context of play? The passage says that when a child does this poking and prodding, which philosophers call empiricism, when the child does it, we call it play. When scientist does it, it's called observation. Right? Now, what is play here? Now, this one talks about which of the following is presented as what? Majority went for answer choice number 4. Metaphor of how adults and children acquire knowledge in similar way. It's not about adults versus children. It's sort of about scientist and child. For scientists, this is observation, experimentation. So I think what makes sense is a less rigorous but analogous method to scientific experimentation. That would be the answer. So there are these cases after cases. For example, look at this question. This question is on Galileo's question. This particular question number 4, the 4th question of Galileo, which will be the question which is here, which is this question, this 4th question of Galileo. So that particular question, where the people struggle. The question is basically talking about. The answer is 24%. I think I played the correct color wrong. It's the third option. It's talking about which of the following most logically explained why these two gentlemen initially found the idea of moving as absurd. And this one is this is clearly mentioned. They have found it absurd because due to the lack of perceived motion. When the earth is moving, they found it earth is not moving because I can't perceive the motion. Lack of perceived motion. What is perception of a motion? Perception of a motion has to be is that no the visible or tactile sensation. They feel that there has to be visible or tactile sensation when I'm moving. That's a perception of motion. And then if you actually look at some of these answers, these are crazy ones. They believe that the object in motion always produces noticeable effect everything around it. If I am moving, everything around it will change, and it goes on and on and on. And so it's like, so they've got a third passage of literary nonsense, simple passage. There are these questions which challenged a bit, small challenges. Even the last passage, even though there is sort of a story, seems when the question is actually not sort of challenging ones. The question did not challenge much. There are issues in this. It had some basic issues. So this idea that this is what you got to do when you look at this reading comprehension. Even if let's say you're doing 2 passages, 3 passages, 4 passages, it is again not necessary that you should go ahead and risk everything. Now, what I want you to do in this analysis is that you identify this is what I want to do as an analysis of this reading comprehension. Right. What I want you to do is to convert this into 2 parts. Questions that you got confused question that you did not get confused. Okay, you know, no? Then look at how many of this question is correct, how many of this question you got incorrect, and assess the time that you spent. Check on the time analysis. At least kind of difficult to look at the time analysis because the question number 1 includes the time that you are question time analysis. Time you would have spent on reading the passage as well, but remove the time and look at how much time you spend on a question that you got confused and what is the net mark that you got, how much time that you spend on the question that did not get confused and what's the net mark that you got, and just have this data, have a look at this particular data. Hopefully it will give you some something to think about in the coming test and also in the cat. Then if I look at the VA, all right, so if I go through this VA question, the first one was crazy, I understand absolutely, because when you read the passage without that sentence, the passage is looking perfect. There is no need for that missing sentence in the passage. But then you have to figure out where is the place for the sentence, right? So this sort of is, as whenever people get confused, they put in this either the beginning or the end. But this second question, sentence placement question, was absolutely crackable. There's no reason to make mistake. This odd sentence question was crackable. This odd sentence question was painful. You probably the second order, you don't know what the hell is going on. You felt that this choice number 3 or 4 is right, but still crackable. If you think about it, it's still crackable. But this paragraph jumble was painful because you just don't know which sentence start the conversation. This was actually easy, but just that the topic would have been painful. Then you have got this paragraph summary question and majority meant for mark answer choice number 2. It says that racial heritage is used as a proxy for non-genetic factors. Racial heritage is a proxy for non-genetic factors. What does a proxy means? Instead of this, I'm going to use this. Instead of the non-genetic factor, I'm just going to use the word. It's a proxy. It's a replacement. It's a proxy. Now this saying because of non-genetic influences of racial heritage. This is not true. And these kind of mistakes we end up making, and then we missed here. So again, you look at here, why are you making mistake in these questions, and hopefully you will get some ideas. This is pro mock number, so we still have time. There's no problem. There'll be a lot of this frustration and fluctuation with respect to reading comprehension. There'll be and VRC in general. But I think that each one of them you got to pick some learning and got to understand what is that you got to do. So this is sort of what I wanted to say back to the rest of them. And next week also I'm probably not going to be there. So probably next week also I'd love to do something like this. Okay, but that's the story. Over to you.
Well, so you heard him. Just a couple of things I want to add to this also. See, one of the things that is good about this paper is it will bring out those people who are very selective with RCs. Let me just pause and take a minute here. Okay. Basically, what students do is they work with a baniya mindset or maybe a gambler mindset. कि मैंने इतना time डाल के पढ़ा है, I've read the whole thing. Then what I must do is I must answer all the questions, which is an exactly a wrong thing to do. Okay. So if the first 2 RCs you would have spent time reading them, you could still have taken out 1 or 2 questions each in both of these RCs. And then in the third and the fourth one, you could have maximized, in terms of the attempts. So I think those people who were able to do that, so that also answers a question that has been put up by others. Others says, how do I know that third and fourth are easy and 1 and 2 are not, right? When I'm reading 1 and 2. So first of all, one more thing about VARC, especially RC, is that you're not supposed to do it the way you do it for DILR. In DILR, what you do is you select कि मुझे ये एक सेट करना है, मुझे एक सेट नहीं करना है, मुझे ये 2 सेट करने हैं, ये सीक्वेंस में करने हैं. That is what we have been suggesting also. However, verbally, if you're going with this mindset, I don't want to do all 4 RCs, I want to do 2 RCs and I'm going to choose, I don't think that is going to work. So what you must do is you must attempt at least 3 and try to attempt 4. Now, you will of course say कि time का है, मेरा time बहुत जा रहा है. One of the questions also said that, right? I'll come to that. Right, but the point we are trying to make is that your attempt should be to check out all the RCs and attempt as many questions as you can, and not go after the gambler mindset कि मैं थोड़ा और पैसा डालूंगा तो सब कुछ वापस आ जाएगा जो मैंने हारा है, whatever I lost I'll earn it back. ऐसा नहीं होता है. So you're doing one question wrong because I've put time reading. That is a wrong mindset. So you have to move on. So first two mock RCs में you should have read, you should have taken one or two attempts and gone on to the third one without wasting time, and then made sure that third and fourth you attempt well. So that is how you should have done it. Secondly,
Sazeal, इसमें ना जो आदर्श का question है, which is what you are addressing, I just want to again highlight one thing which you have already said.
yeah,
You cannot find out which is an easy passage. In DILR, you can find out which is likely to be a passage which you will do better in as compared to others, but even that is not foolproof. And
Right.
please understand that itself takes us about 7-8 minutes of the first 7-8 minutes of the paper. In English, in RC, the only way of finding if it's an easy or not is to read the question and read the passage. That's the only way. And only question will not tell you whether it's easy or not. Only passage will not tell you whether it's easy passage or not. And then the second part is what you need to remember, by and large, that is an observation. I don't have scientific data to prove it, but by and large, I have seen every passage is by and large the same level of difficulty. What do I mean by that? If it is difficult to read, the questions are likely to be slightly easier. And if it is easy to read, the questions are likely to be slightly difficult. So that P into Q is likely to be the same for all passages. So what you need to be clear about is that you have to learn to leave questions. If you are not willing to leave a question, what Sazeal said कि मैंने passage पढ़ लिया है तो उसकी पूरी वसूली करनी है, बस नहीं होगी. Only वसूली will be done by the paper setter. By that, तुमसे नहीं होगी. You need to be clear that I have read the passage great, because without reading the passage I cannot answer question. But once I've read the passage, if there's a question I'm getting confused with, I don't understand, I have to leave it and move on. Going back to the passage, and again I've said this multiple times in the past, also I'm repeating it, you will find that most of the questions which you get wrong are the one where you spend the maximum amount of time. And if you don't spend that time in those stupid questions where you're getting completely confused, you only one change you need to do. Don't go back to the passage. You will have sufficient time to do all 4 passages as well as the rest of the vowel part. So leaving question ensures sufficient time. And to leave question, you have to get rid of this habit of going back to the passage. And if you have any doubts about this, just check out how many questions for which you have gone back are correct. You'll find most of the questions you have gone back for are incorrect. So there's no fun in doing it. So others, you will not be able to realize till you do the paper complete.
So whatever GP and I said, what are you supposed to do? Finally, करना क्या है? करना ये है, skim through the passage, look at the questions, decide कि इसमें से जो हो रहा है मैं कर लूंगा, right? Last point that GP made, which was slightly cracking, I'll repeat it. A lot of you regress from questions to the passage again. Okay, and go back and check when you regress, do you get them right or do you get them wrong? And mostly you will find that regression करने से answer सही नहीं निकलते. So what you retained is what you've answered, and that is right. If that works for you, refine your strategy accordingly. Okay. So moving to the second part of what I wanted to say, and the next slide actually, and look at this and what Gejo discussed, and I'm going to summarize a couple of things and add a couple of things here. Is VA को देख के इतना समझ में आ रहा है कि attempts तो हुआ है. If I compare this to the mocks a month and a half back, we did not see many attempts there. I am very happy about this because that means तुम लोग try तो कर रहे हो, VA तक पहुंच रहे हो, and you are not ignoring it. That's a good sign. In this paper, it did not work. That is all right. Do not decide anything on the basis of this one or any one paper. Okay? एक पेपर के बेसिस पे तुम strategy change नहीं कर सकते. इसमें काम नहीं आया क्योंकि VA वैसा था. Right? So that might not have worked for you. But the good thing is that you are reaching VA and you are attempting VA and keep doing that. Right? Second point is this particular mock as compared to the previous CDC Pro. Previous CDC Pro mein you were supposed to take out most of the score from the VA section out of VARC. In this one, the score would have come from RC and not so much from VA. Right? VA would have supported you. Uske bina fir bhi nahi hota because the second RC was quite useless in terms of the options and questions that were there. But VA को छोड़ नहीं सकते थे, but score RC से आता है. Now ये दोनों mocks का learning को merge करो to understand that both VA and RC are equally important and you can't leave any one of the parts. Okay. Having said that, let me come to the last point that I want to make is VA may, while VA was difficult, and I agree, difficult or tricky or whatever it is, the students found it that way. But I feel the selection was very, very clear. In the sense, when I looked at the 17th question, the first thought is कि मेरे को नहीं करना. I don't want to do this. And when I saw the 18th question, the answer, which is answer 4, right, it popped out straight away. कि और कहीं हो ही नहीं सकता, it has to be 4. So for me, the entire VA section, I understood that it was very easy to select whether I want to go into it or not go into it. And that is sort of conquering with the data that I'm seeing here. So if I were supposed to pick those 2, 3, 4 questions in VA, it was not very difficult to pick them. अब होता क्या है, your hangover of RC would have made you attempt so much in VA also. That's a possibility, right? So don't let that happen. You are still supposed to be selective. Where you are not sure, don't mark. See, I keep repeating this point again and again. I don't know how other mentors agree or not. But quant mein, what do? You don't say, I like A better than B and B better than C. I think 32 looks better than 48. And so I mark 32. You don't do that. You solve a question. When the answer comes out, you match it with the options ki kaun sa close enough hai, and then you mark the answer if you're sure. Otherwise, you leave that question. But verbal में you sit down and say कि कुछ तो आंसर होगा ना, तो A से अच्छा B लग रहा है, B से अच्छा C लग रहा है. That is a short way of losing marks in terms of negative marking. So please don't do that. Please be selective कि मुझे ये छोड़ना है, and be comfortable with the fact कि मुझे ये छोड़ना है. Right? With that, I think we can move out of VA and to the next section. Right? In case anyone has anything to add, please do. I have a couple of questions about verbal. May I take them right away? So I know Dheeraj ka ek question tha. I just put it on the screen. Sorry. I read first few lines of RC and put it on the back burner. ये पहला RC पढ़ के ये feeling आया. Very good. Back burner पे डाल के वापस आने का plan रखना है, तो ये अच्छा strategy है. अगर वापस नहीं आ रहा है ना RC पे, तो थोड़ा dangerous है in terms of score. So please make sure you come back to it. That's a good way to go about it. पहले few lines पढ़ के मैं second पे चला गया, उसके few lines पढ़ के मैं third पे चला गया, then I solved the third one. Very nice. That's a good way of being comfortable with a few attempts. But then you have to go back to it. Okay, I think Kaushal ka ek question lena padega. I just have 1 or 2 more questions. Sir, one RC is taking a lot of time. How to shorten it? How to shorten the time? It is taking 12 minutes in one passage. See, roughly agar baat kare mathematically, 40 minutes you have. RC ke liye you have roughly 28 minutes. 28 minutes divided by 4 RCs is 7 minutes. So technically you are supposed to do an RC in 7 minutes. Of course, सबका ये होता नहीं होगा. That's all right. एक आध RC छूट जा रहा होगा if you're doing it in 8-9 minutes. But you can't. So 12 minutes is a lot. A lot of you are still facing it. I understand that. What you should do right now is do a lot of reading practice every day consistently and do it in a timed manner. So take out a 500 word paragraph or a passage or a essay and give yourself exactly. So let's say you take 12 minutes. Give yourself 11 minutes. Do this exercise for 7 to 10 days. When you in that period, when you my voice is it me or is it happening to everyone? Am I audible properly, GP?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm sorry, my thought process got a little distracted. If you do it in 11 minutes, when you get comfortable doing around 11 minutes, you crunch it to 10 minutes. जितना हो सके उसको crunch करते जाओ. You will see that in the next 2 months that you have, you will be able to reach a safe 8-minute period. इसके आसपास पहुंच गए तो it's okay. In some passages you might be able to do it, in some passages you might not. So I think that is my take on it.
In this question for Kushal, okay, my question would be, why are you taking more time? If you are taking 12 minutes, obviously somewhere you are wasting time in this particular section. Are you taking 8 minutes to read the passage? Are you taking 3 minutes to do a question? Where are you wasting time? Till you know where are you wasting time, you really don't know where to cut time from. Most of the time, my experience has been most of the time wastage happens when you go back to the passage to search for the answer. And which is why I keep on insisting that please don't go back to the passage. Okay, so just Kushal, check out where are you wasting time? Is it in reading the passage or is it in answering the question? Okay. Another place where time wastage happens a lot in RC is when you end up trying to understand each and every line, each and every word. Your job is to get a broad picture, have a broad understanding of what the passage is. If there's a line, if there's a word you don't understand, you still just move on. Don't try to get into details of each and every word and line, because then it will become a question of analysis paralysis also many at times. Which means you'll get confused. You'll have so much data, you'll try to process so much data that you'll get completely confused. And when you go to the question, you will not be able to handle it. Okay. So please check. My suggestion is please check where are you wasting time. Is it in reading the passage, is it answering the question? And accordingly, you'll have to correct it. Okay. Sazeal, there's one question. I think I'll pick it up here. Yeah. I have a Ria Saini. Thank you. I have a habit of attempting all four IC at my strongest section. But my score is decreasing instead of increasing. Okay, Raviteja also saying my voice is cracking. I don't know what the issue is. Okay. Sazeal, कुछ समझ आ रहा है जो मैं बोलता हूँ या I have to
नहीं
change
समझ
my.
में आ रहा है. We are able to connect because the crack is it's very minute. So yeah, it's just
Okay,
disturbing.
so very quickly I'll speak what I want to say. Ria and others for whom the scores are decreasing, again it is most probably decreasing because you have changed the way you are taking the paper. Now most of you say no, I'm still taking the same way. The answer is no, most probably. Ria, earlier you were possibly going by your instinct. Now you are trying to become more analytical. Many of you who have been reading for quite some time, or some of you have been reading since your childhood, you don't need to apply any technique. Instinctively, you will get the right answer because you, of your years of reading, you have your logic in place and you're able to pick out the right answer. Logic has to be applied by those who are not instinctive readers or who do not have a good reading habit. So, Ria, I have found many people who are good readers and are usually able to get the right answers. When they try to become logical and try to apply these and all the techniques we talk about, their scores go down. Just check, is that what is happening to you? The second thing is, which happens with some of you, is because you think this is my strong section, I should not make a mistake. Again, you end up analyzing each and every choice right down to the last minute detail, and again that paralysis happens. So just look at where is the issue. My guess is it is going to be one of these two. Either you are trying to become very logical instead of instinctive. Earlier, I'm assuming earlier you were instinctive. Or secondly, you are trying to analyze each and every choice and not wanting to make a mistake. So you end up confusing yourself. Okay? So possibly one of the two is the issue here.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to the next section on this note. We have a couple of generic questions, but we'll come to that a little later. Yeah. So, Gautam, over to you for DILR.
Sir, so as I told earlier also, probably my analysis of this paper was more or less very close to what last year CAT was. Again, if I look at the attempts and in terms of scores also, we can understand 99 percentile. Last year it was at 27. This time it turned out to be almost 30. 99.5 again 31 and 32. तो अगर मैं ऊपर वाली percentiles को देखता हूँ तो almost I would say the difficulty level was same. But for person who has to score again 90 percentile, again 16 was last year, this time it turned out to be Proctor में 18. So more or less अगर paper का analysis देखा जाए तो the easier part of this section was the first two sets were little more attemptable. So जो आरसी का जीजो सर बोल रहे थे प्रॉब्लम आया कि पहले दो पैसेजेस मुश्किल थे. दिस वाज प्रोबेबली द एडवांटेज. अगर किसी बच्चे को आदत है कि फर्स्ट सेट को पहले ट्राई करके देन आगे मूव करना है, तो फर्स्ट और सेकंड सेट अगर हम थोड़ा सा टाइम लगाकर करते तो डेफिनेटली अटेम्प्टेबल थे.
Gautam, should I share the paper also?
Sure sir, if possible.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, I hope you guys can see it. थोड़ा I'll increase it also. Yeah.
सो इसका सर जो फर्स्ट सेट था, अब इस फर्स्ट सेट में सबसे बड़ा एडवांटेज क्या था कि द क्वेश्चंस वर प्रीटी सेट. इफ यू लुक एट द क्वेश्चंस, none of the question had any additional condition. What does that mean? कहीं भी if और नहीं है, थीटा क्वेश्चन है. That means एक चीज तो ऑलमोस्ट क्लियर थी when I look down to the set and the options कि कहीं भी केसेस नहीं बनेंगे, एक नॉर्मल सीक्वेंसिंग बेस्ड क्वेश्चन होगा. फर्स्ट सेट था. सेकंड सेट में भी वही था कि हमारे को मोर और लेस फेमिलियर लग रहा था. सो अगर हम इस सेट को पर्सनली देखते हैं एंड दैट टू अगर थोड़ा सा समझ लेते क्वेश्चंस को, अगर इनिशियली पढ़ा होता, एक ही पॉइंट था बस. प्रोफेसर राकेश, अगर किसने सेट पढ़ा हुआ है तो प्रोफेसर राकेश के बारे में चीजें ऑलरेडी क्लियर थी फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट से. प्रोफेसर स्नेहा के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से कुछ चीजें अनक्लियर थी, विच 27th as a question was giving a clear image. So this was set was something अगर student would have spent 10-12 minutes could have easily got that. मैं थोड़ा सा मॉक एनालिसिस भी देख रहा था, इसमें अटेम्प्ट्स उतने ज्यादा नहीं थे, वो ओवरऑल पूरा ही कम रहा, बट एज फार एज compared to the other sets, definitely this set was attempted. But I don't know why the accuracy didn't went very well. Might be students have missed a point here or there. But this was definitely a set that was an attemptable set. उसके बाद जो set 2 था, set 2 में भी अगर हम देखें तो again थोड़ा ट्रेडिशनल लाइन पे था. Again the advantage of the set was the explanation was good. And then there were only 3 points given in the set. Point 1, point 2, point 3. जिसके बेसिस पे पूरा सेट क्रिएट हो रहा था. इस सेट में पहले 3 क्वेश्चंस वर प्रीटी स्टेट. अगर हम डाटा सेट थोड़ा सा क्रिएट कर लेते हैं अगेन, बिकॉज जब आप इसे सॉल्व करते हैं तो केसेस नहीं बन रहे हैं, वी हैड अ क्लियर डाटा, सो दैट मेड द सेट लिटिल मोर इजियर. आई पर्सनली बिलीव अगर 1, 2 और 3 कर लिया, 33, 34 में थोड़ा सा कैलकुलेशन इन्वॉल्व हो रहा था बिकॉज एडिशनल कंडीशंस वर इन्वॉल्व, तो थोड़ा सा टाइम कंज्यूमिंग बना रहे था. बट अगर हम अगले 2 सेट्स पे जाते थे तो वो फिगर आउट इजीली हो रहा था कि वो मुश्किल है. लास्ट रादर गेम्स एंड टूर्नामेंट्स वाला जो सेट था वो फर्स्ट लुक में ही कुछ ऐसा दे रहा था कि यार क्लैरिटी ऑफ थॉट नहीं है, सिर्फ 2-4 मिनट एनालाइज करने के बाद समझ आ रहा है कि बहुत सारी पॉसिबिलिटीज लुक रही है पहली लुक में. सो दैट वाज अ सेट दैट आई पर्सनली बिलीव वाज अ ट्रैप, शुड हैव अवॉइडेड व्हाइल सिटिंग इन द एग्जामिनेशन. सेट 3, अदरवाइज सेट 1 and 2 वाज एन इजी अटेम्प्ट. एंड जहां तक सर सेट 4 की बात थी, सेट 4 बहुत बड़ा डिसेप्टिव था. अगेन मोस्ट ऑफ माय स्टूडेंट्स आफ्टर टेकिंग द मॉक वाज लाइक सर ये था क्या, पता ही नहीं लगा क्वेश्चन क्या था, 2 मिनट लगाए, 4 मिनट लगाए, कुछ फिगर आउट ही नहीं कर पा रहे थे. कुछ एक बेसिक सा कंसेप्ट इन्वॉल्व था, अगर किसी को पता था वाज एन इजी. अदरवाइज फॉर अ स्टूडेंट हु हैड टू प्रोबेबली स्कोर 95+ percentile in this section, I believe first 2 set was an easy attempt. Could have spent some time in the fourth set. Third set probably was a difficult job. Baki GP sir definitely would be able to tell more.
I don't know अभी ऑडियो कैसा आ रहा है, मैंने सेटिंग्स चेंज किए हैं. I hope it is better. So just a couple of things इसमें. Fourth set, if you have, some of the students may have done similar questions. That 4 people and in groups of 2 कैसे होता है. So this was a set because their familiarity could have been an issue. But there is a concept जिसका quant में कहीं ना कहीं use होता है, so this is something which you should definitely revise, because the concept in this one that if you arrange them from the lowest to the highest, is some of the bottom and the top, some of the second highest and the second lowest and the middle will be the same. Each one of them is equal. So that is something which you could have even observed had you written this in a sequence. But this is, I think, a set where familiarity was also an issue. Okay, so, but yes, it requires certain logic if you have not seen earlier. Okay. Sazeal, if you can go back to the previous 2 sets. Yeah.
The first 2?
Yeah, this one. Now, if you look at this set, this is a straightforward set, and I think most people should have got it right. While there was an issue out here, it looks like it has very little information. If you look at only 3 statements given, but when you look at the table, at least 50% of the table is filled up. And the questions are also very clearly saying that you will be able to fill up the complete table. Okay? And because question 33, 34 also telling you, while there's an additional condition, which is the doping wala, that condition can be used only, that question can be solved only if the earlier part of the table has been filled up. more and the first 3 questions 30, 31, 32 clearly tell you हो जाएगा. And this is a question data set जिसमें sequentially चल के हो जाना चाहिए, and I think this was definitely a doable set and probably the easiest set for everyone in this paper. Okay. If you look at the next wala, the games and tournaments, here again, while there's an additional condition, which is a stage 2, the fact is stage 2 is easier. If you do stage 1, stage 2 is very easy. Actually, stage 2 is the easier part out here in this particular set. And here again, in this paper, if you look at, the question was somewhat helpful. I'll not say they were completely giving you the answer, but they were somewhat helpful.
Right. Okay. So coming back to this, some think about this, Gautam.
Again, sir, the analysis also says maximum number of students has probably attempted set 2, and again the accuracy level is better in set 2, and set 3 is probably the one with the least number of attempt and least number of accuracy. So probably students are probably able to figure. इसमें सर एक मुझे जो सबसे बड़ा advantage मॉक में दिखा, probably the choice was little easier. बच्चा टारगेट करने जा रहा है, उसको बहुत जल्दी समझ आ रहा है कि मुझे क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना. स्पेंडिंग 2-3-4 minutes on a set was able to figure out. So वो जो एक डिलेमा होता है कि बहुत ज्यादा टाइम स्पेंड करने के बाद 7-8 minutes स्पेंड करने के बाद आई हैड टू लीव दैट सेट, मुझसे निकला नहीं बिकॉज इनिशियली बहुत कुछ हो रहा था बट देन आई स्टक्ड अप समवेयर, वो इशू शायद नहीं आया. सो जिसकी वजह से शायद सेकंड सेट में अटेम्प्ट भी ज्यादा है, एक्यूरेसी भी अच्छी है. आई डोंट नो फर्स्ट सेट में क्या इशू आया, द अटेम्प्ट एंड द एक्यूरेसी वेंट लो. जीजो जीपी सर क्या इशू हो सकता है? आई एम नॉट एबल टू फिगर आउट दैट बिकॉज़ आई फाउंड दैट सेट इजियर.
I think people are little uncomfortable with multiple cases, multiple scheduling वगैरह में, और कोई issue नहीं है. And my guess is people are also possibly not able to structure the data correctly. एक वो हो सकता है उसके अंदर. The other thing which I think which is important here is with something which you said, I spent 6-7 minutes, कुछ खास नहीं बना. Now the suggestion always is if you have spent 6-7-8 minutes and still stuck with that set, go to the questions. And you'll be surprised that at least in one or maybe in 2 questions, you'll be able to eliminate choices and get at least 1 or maybe 2 answers also. And that will again give you additional data to complete the table.
Okay. Fine. So let's move on to quant in a minute. I just want to, I just want to take up.
I think sorry, I thought ये question लेना चाहिए. गौतम, हम लोग बहुत बार बोल चुके हैं, but what would you suggest to Vaibhav and other people?
GP, there is one thing. ये common question है, exactly common है वैभव और धीरज दोनों, by the way. So question भी copy किया हुआ है किसी ने तो. या गौतम.
Sir, देखिए, to be very true, if you're not able to solve even 5 questions of practice significantly for DILR, met set selection is although correct. I don't know why, like 2 sets and not even solving 5 questions, even though the set selection is correct. Might be, sir, the problem with Vaibhav could be not enough amount of practice, but he says practice significantly for DILR. So, sir, could be the problem is like you're not analyzing the questions or the statements very well. एक problem मैंने अपने बच्चों के साथ देखी when I was taking of them. At times what happens is we tend to misread certain information in the pressure. That is one common problem with DILR. अगर हम एक छोटा सा word भी छोड़ देते हैं या हम गलत पढ़ लेते हैं, probably that calm while taking up the DILR section is very important. We need to make sure that we have everything in mind, every information. Specifically for sets which have too many of informations. So ideally, शायद pressure could be one thing that probably would be hampering the scores in DILR. So keeping that calm, making that information right, and probably most important is formatting the question in the right way. अगर हमारा format गलत है, हम उसको बहुत ज़्यादा haphazardly लिख रहे हैं या mess create कर रहे हैं अपने पेज के ऊपर, so that probably could be a problem that I believe that students are facing. So you need to make it structured.
Sorry. इसमें ना एक चीज जो और which is something which you would look at Vaibhav is are you able to solve these sets after the paper? If yes, then it is not a knowledge issue at least. Right now, I don't know whether your issue is knowledge or not. Okay? So if it is the knowledge issue, then you need to maybe practice के साथ revision भी चाहिए है. if you are able to solve these sets after the paper, then it is the behavior issue during the paper. And which is what Gautam was saying. Are you pressurizing yourself? Are you trying to move very fast so that you can attempt larger number of questions? Because once you have decided you are doing a set, you need to give it time. Okay? And hence those silly mistakes happen. You miss out on a couple of words. You miss out on a couple of information points. Okay? So just take this. First thing, if you are able to solve the sets after the paper, at least your knowledge base is fine. You need not worry about it. Then you need to see what is the mistake you are committing when attempting the paper in terms of time spent, in terms of pressurizing yourself, in trying to moving fast, and so on and so forth. If you are not able to solve these sets after the paper, also then it's a knowledge issue, and you need to not only practice more, but you also have to revise these sets. So the sets which you have done earlier, keep doing them again and again, so that the method, the way of solving, becomes a permanent feature for you. For example, in this paper, I think it is extremely important for everyone to revise, at least do set number 4 a couple of times to understand the logic, and definitely the games and tournaments that debating competition wala. वो I think everyone should do a couple of times, revise करो 2-3 बार, because that is a systematic process that you have to follow. Okay?
GP, I also wanted to take up a question that has been repeating. Couple of people doing +1 here. कि एक ही सेट हो पाता है, कई बार वो भी नहीं हो पाता है. How to do 1 set, 2 sets? तो ये बहुत कॉमन क्वेश्चन चल रहा है अभी.
बट सतील इशू वहीं पे है. देखो जैसे वैभव का आया है, क्या आया है? I fear time will go by taking more pressure on me. Because you are putting yourself under pressure. You are ensuring you will not be able to do well. You have to relax a little in the paper. If you are making a do or die effort, you will die. Very rarely in a do or die people are able to do. So just relax. Tell yourself कि कुछ नहीं फर्क पड़ना.
Okay, fine. So let us move on to the next one. That is QA section. And Shivku, let's start with you on this.
See, I think QA section. We deliberately wanted to make it a notch more difficult than what we had last time, right? I think this is very clearly by the design. There is one thing that GP identified it. GP said that right at the beginning. Very clearly, we identified what should be the sequence. First, we said put geometry because people want to run away from geometry, right? Then you do whatever sequencing are there, because I somehow feel that psychologically, if I start by looking at the first 4 questions and say boss first भी नहीं होता, second भी नहीं हो रहा है, third भी नहीं हो रहा है, fourth भी नहीं हो रहा है, subconsciously it builds a lot of pressure, and the whole idea was to see whether can you stand up to this pressure. However, the the questions were not spread out, so there was a mitigating factor there where we said that put all geometry together, put all arithmetic together, and the last part of it is algebra and numbers, right? That is the topography of the paper. If you look at the data, Sazeal, question number 45, if you go to the next slide, right? 45 to 48, right? The percentage attempts is about 15%. The first, which is geometry questions, 15%. People have decided कि नहीं करना है. Okay? So you're already on the back foot. First 4 questions देख के डर गए. If you are somebody who says, हाँ, geometry हटाओ, right? Let me go to the rest one. I think it would have probably a better way. But I feel that when I see the first question, second question भी नहीं हो रहा, third भी नहीं हो रहा, fourth भी नहीं हो रहा, I tend to get a little under pressure. The arithmetic, even though arithmetic, सब लोग कहते हैं arithmetic ही करो, arithmetic 40% attempts. The average attempt is about 40%. You see that line out there, and that which I think is low, right? And if you put all the eggs in one basket and say, boss, arithmetic is what I want to do, nothing else, and if arithmetic is a shade tougher means 8 क्वेश्चन में आप 2 आसान वाला हटा के मुश्किल वाला डाल दो, वो टफ हो गया, right? That's it. It's always a question of 3 to 4 questions in the paper that makes it a easier or tough paper. And algebra, and numbers, attempts is about 25%. Okay. Now, I think where this paper has become tougher is number one because of the first set of geometry questions. The second is maybe a couple of arithmetic questions were not easy, and if people had put all their baskets in arithmetic and say arithmetic के अलावा और कुछ नहीं करनी है, I think there would have been a little bit of problem. So my suggestion will always be that don't tell yourself कि मैं one part of a test I'm going to completely do away with, right? I think you need to. I think Gejo also made some video on this, right?
Yeah.
So please don't decide that I'm going to skip something completely. Right? So I feel this paper still had about 7 to 8 questions that were easy, and you can see those greens, right? There are 5 greens, 7. In fact, 6 greens out there, and we got about 2 odd yellows. That's about 9 questions, moderate to easy. I think it's about getting those. If somebody got 27, he or she would have been around 99 percentile plus in this paper. This paper, had it been a CAT paper, I think at a score of between 27 to 30, you would definitely be in the high 99s in this.
Right. One question that we want to take up is this: not able to select easy questions in quant, always making wrong choices. So मुझे क्या लगता है पता है इसका सिलेक्शन ये एनालिसिस
क्या सिलेक्ट करना है? क्वांट में क्या
Sorry?
सिलेक्ट करना है? क्वांट में सिलेक्शन की क्या
आता है या
बात
नहीं आता है?
हाँ, बस सिंपल सी है. अब
देखो,
अगर तुम
sorry, Chiku. देखो, Sazeal, quant में the biggest issue is we want to try every question. चलो कोशिश करके देखते हैं. ठीक है, let us try. I think don't try. Either do it or leave it. Either you know how to solve or you don't know how to solve. And when you say I'm not sure, leave it. When in doubt, leave. Suddenly your selection improves. The problem is most of the students what they do is when in doubt, try. No, when in doubt, leave is the right philosophy for quant and DILR and English and everywhere.
Right. मुझे इसमें ऐड करना है एक चीज. Jay, I think you are also not going back to your mocks and doing a good analysis कि तूने ये सिलेक्ट किया और वो गलत हुआ तो क्या गलत हुआ. If you're not doing that, you're making the same mistake again and again. If you had done this over the last 10 mocks, let's say, or 5 mocks, whatever you've attempted, right? You would have understood कि मैं क्या mistake कर रहा हूँ, common जो मुझे छठे mock में नहीं करना है. I think you missed out on that because, and hence you are, so there's a learning process. Of course, that learning process is slow. It will not happen over 1 or 2 mocks. It will happen over 5, 7 mocks, at least, right? But that process has to happen on a daily basis, every time that you take a test. So if you're doing the analysis right, I think the problem should start getting sorted by itself.
No, I think Dheeraj is also asking the same question. I feel, if somebody says I'm not able to choose, I might sound a little caustic here, but my view is you don't know whether you know the answer or not. When I read a question, the first thing I know how to solve it is they put things into 3 categories. I know how to solve it. I know how much time it will take to solve it. Right? It's a part of it. 2, I don't know. I have no clue. That's the easiest thing to deal with. Chhod do. The most dangerous thing is I think I can solve it. बॉस थिंकिंग में चला जाएगा टाइम, राइट? जो थिंक वाला क्वेश्चन बाद में कर लेना, थिंकिंग एग्जाम में होना ही नहीं चाहिए, राइट? और अगर होना भी हो तो सेकंड राउंड में आ जाओ. इफ यू now the problem is if I am doing only mocks and I think my scores are going to improve, it's not going to improve. I mean mocks में 22 क्वेश्चन है, हर मॉक तुम हर हफ्ते में तुम 22 क्वेश्चंस करोगे तो कुछ नहीं होगा. So I think there has to be some practice. I hope you're practicing, and if you're not practicing beyond the mocks, I don't think scores will improve. I mean, if you are not very comfortable with math.
Yeah, in fact, just to add to what Shivku said, the rule is very simple. दिमाग लगाना पड़ेगा तो सवाल नहीं करना है. I am not going to think at all either. Any question that I can do mechanically is the question I should be attempting. Otherwise, I should not be doing it. Okay? That I think is extremely important.
विश्वजीत ये तो विश्वजीत का जो क्वेश्चन है, आई एम डिसेंट इन क्वांट बट प्रॉब्लम इज आई फॉलो लॉन्ग मेथड. देखो लॉन्ग मेथड आल्सो टेल मी इफ योर लॉन्ग मेथड इज टेकिंग 8 minutes, it is super long, right? And I don't think there are questions here. I mean, if I call myself Vishwajit, I am decent in quant, at least you tell yourself marks per minute kitna hai, right? Now, and then the subsequent thing, I am able to do 12 questions easily, right? My suggestion to all of you who says कि अच्छा बाद में तो आराम से हो जाते हैं, maybe it could be because you're under less pressure. दूसरी बात है कि I mean, you're probably not timing yourself because the time might itself be putting a lot of pressure on you. People take a decisions कि अच्छा 4 minute लग रहा है छोड़ दो, बस 4 minute में 3 marks आ रहा है तो क्या problem है? Now, if somebody is in the 40s वाला range, औकात जो score है 40, that person says, अच्छा 4 minute 5 minute लग रहा है 3 mark के लिए, he might actually take a decision कि ठीक है, I'll come back to it later. But if I am in the 27 to 20, 30 range, and I will not hesitate to do a question, if I know I will get 3 by spending 3.5 minutes, if I know I'm going to get 3 marks, I will do it, come what may. I think that, to me that is very छोड़ो मत.
एक और क्वेश्चन है जीपी आपके लिए. But GP sir, until I put geometry questions on the paper and take a look at the diagram, I can never be sure if I can do it or not. बात तो सही है.
देखो, I don't have problem putting it on paper and making a diagram. It give you 30 seconds, 40 seconds at the end of 1.5 minutes. You'll know whether you'll do it or not. See, हम लोग ना टाइम को ज्यादा अहमियत दे देते हैं कि टाइम बचाना है. बिल्कुल नहीं बचाना टाइम. The best way to save time is not to attempt difficult questions. Okay? The faster you are able to leave them, the more time you save. Okay? Secondly, just to add to what Shivu said, in any CAT paper of the last 7, 8, 10 years, if you are getting 40 marks in 40 minutes, you have done a terrific job. 40 marks means roughly 13 questions, which is 3 minutes per question. So any question which is 3 minutes on an average is perfectly fine. But if I'm looking at the 3 minutes on an average, there'll be some question I'll do in 4.5 minutes, some question I'll do in 1.5, 2 minutes also. Okay? And as Shivu said, if you are don't think you are someone who's a 40 mark material, you are a 25, 28, 30 mark material, or you'll be extremely happy with by doing 8-9 questions. You have 4 minutes per question. You have 4.5 minutes per question. If all you need to do is 8 or 9 minutes, 8 questions. Actually, closer to 5 minutes per question. So please don't give itna bhav to time. Problem time ka nahi hai. Problem is your inability to leave question. Because you are not able to leave question, you end up wasting time on something which you are unable to solve. That is the issue which you need to look at.
And इसमें when you revise, I mean सब लोग solution देख के उनको लगता है कि समझ में आ गया. तो मैं तो मेरा एक ही thumb rule है. I have understood when I can explain it to somebody else. Otherwise, I have not understood it. Simple. Solution देख के समझ में आ गया वाला story ना, I don't think it works. Because if there is small twist, वो फिर solution भी change हो जाएगा. अगले बार solution देख के दोबारा समझ में आएगा. So I think when you are revising, please see if you can explain it to somebody else. That's when you know that you have understood it.
Great. So I think let's see if there are any other questions that are relevant. Otherwise, we can call it a day.
And Sazeal, just for the record, the 2 videos which I have to put, I'll put them up tomorrow.
Yeah. So the Jugaad videos, right?
Yeah, Jugaad overview and other stuff.
Yeah. So जो लोग पूछ रहे थे अभी जुगाड़ in the chat, it will be ready tomorrow.
Booster analysis में होता है यार. Booster analysis में in booster analysis there you will find my videos. Okay then. So.
Okay. Have a good night. Bye everyone.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Good night, sir.
Good night. Good night, guys. All the best.